welcome back to Over the Glass. I am your host, Drew.
And I am the co-host, Jay.
Jay, how are we doing today?
I think we're doing okay. Like, the weather in the Bay is kind of gloomy, but I saw the other day, I was curious about how we're doing in terms of whether California is still bone dry. And we released, I don't recall how much, but we released some water from our reservoir. And apparently there's like a lake that's out in like Death Valley that's been like beyond dry for years that is actually like flourishing and living its best life. So that is good news for California.
That is great news for California. I have some. I'm chomping at the bit to share my own great news, and it's that Elias Pettersson is signed for 8 years, long term, to the Canucks. 92.8 million dollars. 11.6 a year AAV. PD got his bag. I'm so stoked.
So I was listening to 32 Thoughts on Friday. I was needing to drive around for a bit for work, and usually podcasts are a nice way to just kind of sit in your car and go about your day. And I had no idea that the Canucks and Elias Pettersson were in a bit of this like contract drama.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that things have resolved themselves, because like that was some intriguing news to me. Can you kind of give me like a little more of a backstory on that whole bit?
Yeah. So, this is PD's RFA year, right? And so we've all known for a while that PD was going to need to sign long term, or there was going to have to be something with Pettersson involved. And for the last couple seasons, the way Vancouver media does, they harped on that point about, well, are you going to sign? Are you going to sign before the season? Are you going to sign during the season? And PD has stuck to, I want to get this done in the offseason. The thing that PD said coming into this season was he wanted to see what the team did, like what the team was going to bring to the table, the direction of the team long term. And so the whole season, right, it's kind of been like, well, this is a nothing burger. PD's going to sign in the offseason. We know that's his plan. That's what he wants to do. But then recently there was a lot of talk that came out, especially right here around the trade deadline, that PD just wasn't showing up to the negotiation table. I don't know the extent of all of those talks about how valid that was, but there was a little bit of I don't want to say a refusal to negotiate, but there was definitely like we're not going to do that right now kind of attitude. And so literally yesterday, so Friday the 1st, we all sort of find out, it is Thursday, Friday, that PD's name came up in conversations to go to Carolina. That there was pretty much a deal that was done in place to send Pettersson to Raleigh, North Carolina, to be a Carolina Hurricane. And then lo and behold, that report comes out, and we wake up to the Canucks signing this man at 7:00 in the morning, Vancouver time, Saturday morning. Like, what a way to wake up the hockey world. I think it's a little bit interesting what it looks like to me from the outside after all of this back and forth about when's he going to sign? Is he going to sign in the offseason? What it looks like happened to me is that the team, because we started hearing reports that the team was getting calls about PD, it seems to me like the team was starting to get some really good, legitimate offers for Elias Pettersson, and they approached him and said, listen, we get it done, or we move you. And we now have PD for 8 years, 11.6 AAV. I mean, he's got like next year is like a $12 million signing bonus that he gets in year one. He's the 5th highest player in the NHL, paid player in the NHL right now. So when that contract starts next season, it was, we had heard rumors that it was like 8 years, 12.2 million. So there is talk, PD did take a hometown discount. So did JT Miller when they signed, so that the team does have more money on the books to sign more talent. But how it feels like to me, just after the last 72 hours of it all being Elias Pettersson, is they were getting legitimate offers. PD didn't really want to do the negotiations during the season, and then the Canucks were like, listen, we either sit down, we talk about it, or you're getting a new home. And I'm glad that it did not result in that. I have 2 Elias Pettersson jerseys. I would have been extremely heartbroken. I have the rookie season jersey and the reverse retro, the gradient, and I would have I would buy a Canes PD jersey, but it's not what I want to do, so I'm glad I don't have to do it this time. I'm excited.
I do believe I came across a mention of Carolina and like the brief, like learning about it, trying to get some more information. And the first thought I had was like, Jesus Christ, like where do the Canes have money?
Right?
They just always seem to be in these conversations with like, oh, you have a high profile forward? Yeah, we'll take him too. How? Tell me how. It just like in the last couple of seasons, it just seems that way. Like anyone who could be a game changer for a playoff team, it just seemed like the Canes were in discussion. They were in discussion like last season, last off season for Erik Karlsson, and it's just like how like. How are you guys doing this? And not in like a Tampa or a Vegas type of way.
Right. That's what. Whenever they said like that was the same thing too. Is like they were like, well, there was a deal in place to send Pettersson to Carolina, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
And who? I get the Canes aren't like deprived of talent, but who are we getting back from Carolina? That's Elias Pettersson, like in any sort of like caliber of way that we could even have the money to sign. Like like how is that playing out in the scheme of things anyway? Because like that cap hit next year for PD, like there's gonna be somebody that goes. There's Vancouver's gonna have to trim the fat, like there's gonna have to be cut downs. And so like I said it before, I said it on like one of the live streams that I did for PSF, like this is in a way this last stretch of games right here for the Canucks it's like an audition too, right? Like they've brought in so many new faces, so many new guys that are gonna need a deal. And so management right now is in a position where they feel like they can win, but they also have to figure out like what is the identity of the Canucks moving forward. Like we've done a good job of building a winning culture in Vancouver, but what is a winning culture outside of just at least right now for this year being number 1 in the league? Like we still haven't made it to the playoffs. We still don't know what this team will do in the playoffs, how far they'll get, or who will even be around at the end of the season. So in a lot of ways, it's like an audition to see who hangs out for this new look Vancouver team. And the idea, like I thought it was a little bit wild in a way that like we were even getting to that point in a Pettersson contract discussion where like we're gonna have to move somebody who we've really been building around. So it's interesting. That's why I said to me it feels like they gave PD that kind of ultimatum, because it was like we're in the situation where like management's ready to win. I know the players are ready to win. That's all they talked about all season. But if you're the guy and we've been building around you and you're not committed to what's happening here, like are you part of the fat that we trim? Like, yeah, I don't, what I'm saying? It's like, it's not really like part of like what I think anybody's seen Pettersson being, but I'm excited that the crisis has been averted, that we have PD in our clutches. I'm excited, and I don't have to do anything drastic like buy a Carolina Hurricanes jersey.
Yeah, I mean, because I'd imagine the Canucks didn't want to wait for the off season and they get to like a standstill and they just can't get
let them walk for nothing. Yeah, which I think was another.
Yeah, which is what I was getting at. Like you get to a standstill. Like this is like you don't want to find yourself in that situation from like a business point of view. Like yeah, like we like you, but how much do we like you if you're
right? Like how much are
putting
you? How
us
much
in the situation? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And that's so it's nice. It's interesting too that like him and JT both took a hometown discount to stay. Like that makes me feel pretty confident about at least the locker room culture inside, inside of Vancouver, that we have guys that are kind of like getting the memo to be all in and to maybe build something long term. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to have PD back. I also didn't know if you've seen this bit of news, but Taylor Heisey has returned to the Minnesota lineup. She came off of IR. First game back today in the PWHL, so that's exciting. Did you catch any of that early game earlier? The
Oh,
Minnesota.
geez. I've been trying to catch really any hockey that isn't, first and foremost, shark hockey is my priority. But lately, there's been just life happening, and I will wake up and I'll be like, God damn it, there's a PWHL game right now. Like my eyes are barely open. And it's speaking from me being on the West Coast, and I'm sure like it's all great and fun for everyone on the other side of the country, but I'm like, man, I can't concentrate right now. So unfortunately, in not so many words, no, I haven't been able to catch any PWHL games lately, but it looks like there's a lot of cool stuff happening. And there's been some movements like Grant Mentis I saw got released from her contract, which I find is a real drag. Um, but I've been seeing a lot of like cool stuff. Like a couple weeks ago, I think it must have been in Toronto. It was Toronto, and I can't remember who they played against, but it was where the Leafs play, and I think like they sold out, like which makes total sense for that area, but it's still like what a great thing. What a great
Yeah,
thing to see.
yeah. I was gonna ask because I don't think we had ever really talked about it. The Battle of Bay Street. It's like 19. I know they had said that like originally they put the number out before puck drop, and it was like they were expecting 18,800 fans, and it ended up being like 19.2 and some change that showed up. Like, um, I've been so stoked. I try to catch the PWHL whenever I can. Like today, it threw me off because like I don't know what happened with my like sense of time, but I woke up and then I was like, oh, they're like I seen the Heisey thing, and I was like, oh, but they're playing like right now. Like I don't have time to even like think about like comprehending my world before turning on the PWHL game. But I was like, I just think it's so stoked about the support, like the just people actually like being on board. I would love to see. I know we talked about it a little bit when Mickey was on the pod a few weeks back, but I can't wait to see what happens for like the expansion of this league because the support that
Absolutely.
they're getting with just 6 teams, like you give them another 4, you have 10 teams. Like what? How does I feel like there's only like uphill growth for the league at this point. Like it's just I think when they get all the branding and everything done and they expand the team, of course there's Heisey is Heisey straight out of college? Yeah, like fresh out of college, right? So like you have these good athletes that are still at the collegiate level that can get drafted in so that the talent pool is growing. Obviously see it when the little girls are in the stands and they're like, I want to be a professional hockey player. Like your talent pool is organically sort of blossoming. I think it's such it's like an exciting thing for sports and for
Mhm.
hockey. And I know we talk about hockey culture a lot and the problematic issues that surround hockey culture. This is honestly, I think, like the best thing that could happen for the sport right now is because like the women are just first of all they're not scared to have a personality, which I love. They're just them. They're willing to try anything new. It was one of the things that like when I did the Sensorina interview with Heisey, she said that she was like, I think in women's sports and women's hockey in particular, we're just looking to try anything new. Like we're not scared of experimenting. Like we can't be. And I like that. I think it's so fun. I think this is a really positive thing for hockey culture, and I was really excited to with her being pretty much Mrs. Hockey. I was excited to see her back in the lineup as well. She got looking at the stat sheet here. She only got one shot on net today, but when you come back from being on IR, you gotta kind of get reacclimated to everything, and
Yeah, you got to ease
yeah,
your way back in. Yep.
yeah. So I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see what happens with this league. I think 19,000 people for the battle of the like the OG, I guess you could say, battle of Bay Street with 6 teams. Like there's no other way for this league but to just completely pop off. I think it's fantastic.
It is really great.
Minnesota won that game today, by the way, 2-0. I had only got to see the score for like 5 seconds during the third, and it was still 2-0. So I'm glad I didn't miss anything when I was running around the house this morning, trying to feel better. The other big topic, there's been a lot. Like yesterday, I think it's fair to say, and I don't mean to say this as a biased Canucks fan, but I think the Pettersson news woke up the hockey world. Like they signed PD at 7:00 in the morning Vancouver time. Nobody was expecting that, especially after hearing that. Oh, we're trading him to Carolina. I think at least for me, I was like holding my breath, waiting for bad news to strike at any moment. But it's Rempe, right? That's how you say his name. Yeah. And I know you like the Rangers, so I really wanted to bring this up with you in particular. I don't Rempe and Reaves here last night. Man, tell me what are your thoughts about this kid?
I feel like I've said this at some point because it's not something that I shy away from. When I first got into the sport, like the fighting aspect of it was one of those things where it's unlike any other sport outside of ones that are revolve around the concept of fighting, like UFC. It's kind of like wild and out there. And when I would go to games, I used to get up and be like, yeah, like kick his ass or, whatever. Like you get into it because it's like kind of crazy and exciting. But, over time, like, with the CTE stuff that's come up, and when you start feeling like, is that necessary? Like, do we like the thing that like one of the things that annoys me the most is like the fight that just happens at the end of the game because like one of the teams is just like being blown out, and then it's just like, I need to show how tough I am. Like, oh please, like, can this game just end? Like I'm not excited about this fight. Like, we lost this game, and like this is like but we're still tough. Like, okay, sure. But ultimately, it's the concern of, at the end of the day, these guys are not going to be hockey players forever at at a professional level, like the career, by the time they're like 30, they're already seeing like over the hill. But I have been concerned ever since Matt Rempe came up to play for the big club, because he's only played 7 games so far. And in the 7 games that he's played, he has been in a fight in 5 of them.
Yeah, I seen like the preliminary, like the number of PIMs that he had racked up through his first however many games, and that most of them were fighting majors, and I was like, ooh.
And so when I saw that, so even before this fight, because the previous couple of games where he's gotten fights with folks, like people were already talking about like, oh, when they go against the Leafs, Reaves is waiting for him, blah blah blah, and whatever. So like I kind of expected this to happen. But prior to that, he hit one of their defensemen, like their newly acquired defenseman. How do you say his name? Lubushkin, that they acquired from the Ducks. And I tweeted out in response to that tweet, like, no thanks. Because a game previous to that, I was on his side for this hit, that he's like a foot taller than this guy. Like, I kind of feel for him that like he's in a league with everybody who's like much shorter than him, and like while he did have a valid hit, it ended up being worse because the guy is like a foot shorter than him, and he has to figure out how can he like make it not work in his disadvantage when he's just trying to deliver, like, legal checks and things like that. But in this case where he went after the Leafs defenseman, I was just like, no, that's entirely unnecessary. He basically went from one end of the ice to the other and was just like, I'm going to take this guy out. And his height also doesn't help, that he kind of like towers over the guy to complete the check. And the momentum is also moving the guy to go in that direction. And it's just going to end up being way worse. But like over the course of the 7 games that he has been in the league, I kind of feel like that's like his thing at the moment. And I get that as a young player, you're kind of trying to establish why the big club should keep you up there. I don't recall what may have happened. Like, I know the Rangers have been going through a series of injuries, like a lot of teams in this league right now, but I don't recall the exact reason why, like, he was called up. But when I made that comment, a friend of mine who has followed him through his like junior run had mentioned that, well, the thing is, unfortunately, is like, he's actually a really good hockey player. Like, he has like the ability to, come into the play and, do other aspects like that. But this is kind of like been his thing throughout juniors, and outside of the team that he played on, the rest of like the junior league has just been like, yeah, we don't know. We're not
That's
down for this.
That's what I was wondering, if he's just like a known goon, or if he's like got skills. I just don't feel like New York right now would just call somebody up just because they can chuck some bows at center ice. I just don't think that's. I don't know what New York has going on. I just don't feel like that's a thing that teams try to do anymore, especially like with the Samantha Sam CP. I know we've shouted her out before on the pod with her work that she's done, but she retweeted that fight with just the headline from CBC Sports of NHL enforcers die 10 years younger than their fellow players. Study finds. So it's like, I just don't feel like any league, any team right now, I mean, yeah, you might need grit, you might need some size, like we've seen the Canucks bring in like Zadorov for that sort of reason, but I just don't feel like teams are making moves for guys that just come in and just like fisticuffs it out. Like you have to be. This is a league with physicality, with speed, with dimension. You need more than just the fighting aspect of your game, and that's why, I mean, like, I get you're in the big club. You're trying to make a name for yourself and say like, hey, I deserve to be here. But I just feel like, I mean, especially if that isn't his thing, that he could be making that case by playing a more complete game rather than just coming in and looking for the fight. And I mean, my relationship with fighting in hockey is kind of weird. I like the fighting aspect of it when it's that natural sort of thing that just comes from the emotion of the game, right? Like, it's getting a little chippy, it's getting a little physical, tempers are getting testy, guys are pushing and shoving. Not these like stage, like, we're gonna drop gloves at center ice and go at it and like do long term. I mean, there's still long term brain damage, even if it's spur of the moment or stage. But it just feels like, I don't know, that sort of can justify the element of fighting a little bit more through like the natural competitive emotion that comes, rather than just like, here's this other team's big guy and I'm trying to make a case for myself, so I'm going to drop the gloves with Ryan Reaves. Especially, like, I mean, when I was looking at this fight, there's 6 minutes left in the third, right? Yeah, I'm blind as all get out. But yeah, it's three. You're down a goal. 6 minutes left in the third. Like, there's other ways to be effective than dropping the gloves with Ryan Reaves. So I just.
But the thing with Reaves, though, I don't think it had anything to do with, like, it was going to happen in this game. Is the thing, and that, if anything, is the part about fighting. I'm just like, fine, just get it over with. It's like, just because of the whole concept of fighting within the hockey culture aspect of it, and Reeves has been seen that this kid is like, oh, he's coming into my territory, and I see that we're playing against him in the coming days. I need to approach him and be like,
This is a little bit like, it feels like
yeah,
beating on my chest. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I that's the kind of like I just and it, to me it seems callous like to keep letting this kid come in and like just drop the gloves out of like some like you have to you're gonna drop the gloves everybody you have to prove yourself against all these enforcers like it's a little bit of like beat your chest and stick your chest out and like you said like Ryan Reaves is like okay well this is my thing you're stepping into my territory. I,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff to me, especially with the link to CTE and brain damage and even the length of like like the studies between like mental illness and the way that enforcers like suffer like depression and the problems with the with drug addiction that come out of this kind of relentless beating on each other's faces. If it's not crucial to like I don't know with fighting I feel like if it's not some sort of competitive like spontaneous competitive emotion we could do without it it's I mean fighting is to hockey I feel like Atlantic is to ocean one of those things but it's this kind of stuff this big bad beat on your chest really prove yourself to me it's just like whatever you know
Yeah.
uh,
Um yeah, so all I can say about it is I am just concerned, like legit concerned for this kid. I just looked it up. He's 21. And if you look
Jesus.
at his stats from when he was in juniors, like his PIMs are quite high. And, to be told that he's actually like, a pretty decent hockey player, and just given the fact that he is like a giraffe, he's kind of been, I mean, again, I don't know the history, but just given, it's like in basketball when someone's like extremely tall, it's like people kind of like, oh, you should really be a basketball player. And I kind of feel like that's maybe something that kind of happened here, where it's like, oh, you could really like step into this role, which yeah, I'm just concerned about his future, given that he's been in 5 fights in just his first 7 games in the NHL. When you've seen pictures of him, he had like 2 black eyes. And I find nothing exciting about that. I am just legit concerned for this kid. And unfortunately, the vibes over from what I can see from the Rangers fan base and their organization, it's like they're loving it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not down for that.
No, that's why I had seen the news and stuff about him like all this week. Of course, he's been one of the top stories, and people are like, oh, we need this. This is great for the game. This is exciting. This is exciting for Rangers fans. And I was like, well, I want to bring this up in the pod because I know Jay is a Rangers person, and I just like you said, like 21. I didn't know he was quite that young. I knew he was a young guy at 21. I mean, at this rate, he won't have I, when I think about guys doing this kind of stuff, like the prime example for this, I think like is Michael Furlan, right? Like he had that terrible altercation in Carolina. The Canucks signed him. He came in and it was like I don't even know if it was more than like his first couple of games outside of like in Vancouver. He comes in, he gets into a fight, he gets a concussion, deals with post concussion syndrome for months, finally rejoins the lineup, and I can still remember that fight like it's happening now because he started to drop the gloves, things got physical, he started to drop the gloves, and the whole time I was watching that fight in his first game back. He had already, if I'm not mistaken, he had already left one time for concussion protocol and then was returned to come back out onto the ice. He gets into this fight, and the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm like, Furlan, no. Like you're going this is going to cost you your career. And it did. And it did. He never came back from that altercation. It ended up ending his career because he could not heal from the post concussion syndrome, and that kind of stuff. It's inflammation. It leads to CTE. Leads to all sorts of brain damage. I just, 21. If he keeps it up, I think in this sort of like circumstance, Michael Furlan's a great example of like what his future has in store in the league. If he doesn't find some other way to leave his mark, and that um, I don't know. I just don't think we should be glorifying it as much as fighting in hockey is fighting in hockey. Like, listen, it's probably not going to go anywhere, and that's fine. But this sort of like beat on your chest and make a name for yourself by taking on the tough guys, like we there's got to be something else. We got to do it a different way because, um, just because you're doing it on that 200-foot sheet of ice doesn't mean that there's not real-world, long-term implications off of it. And I just think it's irresponsible for us to glorify it.
1,000%. 1,000%.
And you brought up Labushkin, and so talking about Labushkin and the Canes, this was a sort of like an interesting conglomeration. Excuse me. What happened? What do you think is that trade? Because to my understanding, the Canes retained part of his salary too to get that 6th round pick. There was a little bit of money laundering happening in the NHL.
Yeah, so when I saw this trade, like immediately I was like, okay, the Leafs are desperate and they don't have a whole lot of money and they're just dumpster diving in like the bargain bin. Because just given the fact that they had to retain 75% of this guy's contract, and I saw not too long after this was announced, there was a chart to show his I put it up here, chart to show just his overview as a player, and I'm just like, they really just needed anybody. They really just needed someone who was confident enough to stand on the blue line because he's really great with his teammates, is what I took from this. 57% with his teammates. So he will drive about half the time with everybody. But anything else you need from him, grab bag.
It makes you wonder, what is the so Toronto, I feel like, is just completely seat of their pants sometimes. They're like, we need that guy, and his name sounds like it would fit in Toronto, so we'll take him. But you guys have to keep the money. This was the wildest thing. I think it was the Canes retain 25% or 50%. There was everybody was getting a little bit of his contract, but he only plays for the Leafs. The Canes were like, we'll take a 6th round pick and cut you a nice check to broker this deal.
Yeah. A three-way trade. It really just seemed like, in order for make this happen, you have to kind of I feel like those other two teams kind of stole the trade, and the Leafs just, they were pretty desperate for a warm body on the blue line, and they just don't have money.
Hey, I mean, we have for any Leafs fans that are listening, I'll let Tyler Myers go for a bag of pucks and a signed stick.
Future considerations.
We'll take cash offers. PD just got his bag, so we need a little bit to spread amongst the others. But I remember at one point in time, I think Labushkin was getting a bunch of attention for one reason or another, and then he kind of fell off, and then seeing this trade come through the other day, I was like, well, that's an interesting sort of how that all works out. I love that at the heart of this whole podcast, it's been Labushkin causing problems with Rempe and the Canes just being involved. It's kind of the theme of today.
One thing that I didn't put on here that I do want to mention, when I was listening to 32 Thoughts, there was another thing that got brought up by Elliot Friedman, that he really should not be saying these sort of, or give a warning to the team that you're going to talk about. In the team in this case is San Jose Sharks. In the warning that needs to happen is anybody who likes Mario Ferraro, because I know I've said I'm not attached to anybody, but I have mentioned that I would be particularly sad if Ferraro were to get traded. And the organization has come out and said that they are not actively looking to trade Ferraro. But Freeman has to go on and talk about how he would be such a great fit for the Leafs, and the Sharks are looking to trade him, and I'm like, that is cause for me to turn off the road and lose focus, because Please don't be saying stuff like that. Come on, come with a trigger warning, please, before you say those sort of things.
See, your Ferraro trade talks are like my Pettersson trade talks. Like waking up and being like, they were gonna send PD to the Canes. And I'm like, apocalypse. What do you mean?
I mean, we still have like a week left, and I mean, I know that like it's probably gonna come down to like the last 48 hours. Everyone's gonna make their moves like right before March 8th. But while I do want to see some trades happen, like I'd like you to talk about some of the other guys that I would actually like to see go.
who so if okay, so for Ferraro got moved, this is just kind of like a fun sort of like question. Besides Toronto, I don't feel like anybody is like super excited to give the Leafs a player. Like it doesn't matter like which fan base. I feel like if somebody gets traded to the Leafs collectively, the hockey world's like, really? So do you have like a ideal no trade clause, like places Ferraro won't end up if he gets moved?
I mean, really anybody but Vegas.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think it would stink if he went to a SoCal team. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We don't do that sort of stuff over here. But I mean, the one upside I see to if he were to end up with the Leafs is that Ferraro is from the Toronto area. So it'd be really great for like his family to come see him out there, blah, blah, blah. But like, I do not wish the Toronto media on Ferraro.
Yeah,
that boy tries so very hard and has made some big strides in the absence of us trading Burns and Erik Karlsson and like our veteran players just like being very mid over the last couple of seasons. He has like really stepped into his role and yeah, but I do not wish any of that like heaviness that comes from the Toronto media on him. So
that's fair. I mean, I guess like when I was thinking about like PD getting moved to the Canes, I was like, well, it is North Carolina, so I imagine the media isn't quite as intense as Vancouver media. Although the list of places Pettersson like would have potentially ended up, Carolina was not. I'm pretty like impartial for them. I like take it or leave the Carolina Hurricanes, but it's not like a place I would have expected somebody from our roster to end up. So when guys get moved, like when Tanev, I know we talked to Avery about Tanev maybe ending up in Edmonton, and Tanev ended up in Dallas, and I still screamed. I still had the same reaction. I don't really think that Dallas is a real hockey team, so I don't know if Texas is a real place.
Can I just say, so last night the Sharks were playing the Stars, and I spent some time living out in Texas. They scored a couple of goals. It's fine. But oh my God, I cannot stand their goal celebration. Maybe it just triggers me from like the couple of games that I went to go watch in American Airlines Center. I think that's where the Stars play. Yeah, maybe it just triggers me a little bit. But every time that they scored last night, I was just like, God, shut up. Like,
what is it? What is it that they do? They have something.
Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars. And I'm like, ah.
Well, listen. Well, while we're on that, the other thing, it's like when the teams do the anthem stuff, and like the Jets, like they have they really get into like the true North part of it, and then in the Star Spangled Banner, the Stars like stars every time it comes up.
The Knights do the same thing.
Yes, yeah, the Knights are the other one I was thinking about. Gosh, every time that happens, I like just a little inside. I'm like, why? Oh, hockey. Speaking of hockey things, this picture here of Tarasov I believe this is the goalie for the Blue Jackets. He's all alone. There's no one there beside. He didn't fit on the bench. He's in the dressing room watching the game on the TV.
Won't someone think of the backup goalies?
Right.
For the Sharks, they do have to sit in like the Sharks bench for the players. They just come in through that hallway and then they line up through like the bench. But the away team is on the other side and they have to come in through that hallway and then skate across. So that's where the backup goalie has to sit because there's no room for them on the bench, because the hallway that like the two benches like connect to, that's where the home team's backup goalie sits. So I guess we can't have the two goalies like sit in that hallway with one another and stare at each other. So we have to exile the backup goalie. But at least the backup goalie gets to actually like watch the game with everybody, versus in this picture, I'm like, this is incredibly sad. Not only does he have to watch it on like this tiny ass TV, but he's like, it's like you go to your room and you think about what you did. It's just kind of like the feeling that I have when I see this. And he's just kind of like sitting there. Like they've got a little extra cushion for him on that like hard ass folding chair. And you just get to sit here and you just get to watch your friends play. Like, this is just so incredibly sad.
It has so many big like go to your room and think about what you've done vibes. It really does. It's just he's just completely dressed. Like he showed up 10 minutes too late for the game and like, you can't play. You have to go sit in there. You can't play with us. There's another venue, I think it's Calgary's, where it's really bad. Like I believe it's Calgary's where it's really bad and they have to like sit like basically in the stands to be near the benches at all. It's just kind of like truly like Castaway Island. I'd be so sad if I were just like full dress, like I'm the backup, and if they needed me, I was gonna have to come like walk 20 miles out of my tunnel to join my friends. Like, don't worry, guys, I'll be there, but I have to come out of my room first. So sad.
It's so sad for him.
I hate a sad goalie. Like, I don't think goalies, this should be illegal for goalies to have to be sad or even remotely look sad in any way. And they should
just leave him there with like some blocks, some toys to play with.
Right, a coloring book, some Lincoln Logs. He's like a neglected puppy sitting on somebody's porch out in the rain. Just I don't even at least give him a snack. All he's got is a cushion. I won't stand for this maltreatment of goalies. What do we have here? Oh, Jay, what's happening in this Stars Sharks clip?
Okay, I need to give praise to my beautiful, gorgeous baby shark, Magnus Krona. Can we just sit for a minute and just bask in that beautiful name?
First of all, the name is epic. The name is epic.
That's why we need a moment of silence to just take in that moment. Beautiful, beautiful name. This Swedish goaltender that we acquired.
Does he want to be a Canuck? Go ahead.
Excuse me. We acquired him back in 2018, trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning. We had traded away a defenseman that we acquired within the same season. So it kind of felt like Tampa may have, I don't really know exactly why they felt like, oh, we're okay. Like we don't really foresee this goalie in our future, and we'll make this sort of like fair trade with another team to just kind of like, get him off to a new home. But when I saw that trade, I was like, that is an epic, awesome name.
Yeah.
And I just remember it's like what, 6 years later, or I guess 7 years, because he's with the Barracuda right now. but like he went to the University of Denver, I think, and like last season, he had won, I don't remember what competition it was, but he was like the goaltender to win that award or whatever. But like all that to say, pretty much from the time that we had traded for him, he's kind of been like in the back of my mind. I have been waiting for a franchise goaltender. Not to say that he is. We're kind of in a bit of a like a goaltender. We're not really sure what we're doing right now. We're trying to find our way. The last time we really had a franchise goaltender, and I don't really think I want to say that like Martin Jones was that type of friend. I think we wanted him to be. We gave him that like long ass contract. I think it was like 5-ish years or something after he like took us all the way to the like the cup back in 2016. Like I think he was meant to be that. Like we even painted a goddamn giant mural of his fucking face at the practice rink for the San Jose Sharks. And I remember, I think this was the season before we traded him, or not traded him. We bought him out. And I just remember walking in there for like one of my games and seeing that giant mural and just thinking like, that's going to be really bad if we end up like buying him out or trading him. Like that was like the first thought when I saw that. I was like, ugh. And then when we bought him out, the mural was still up there for like a whole season. And me and my friend were joking, like they kept it up to like show the team, like if you don't like do your job, this is gonna be you.
That's like when the Canucks put the big thing of like Bo Horvat on the side of like RA, and then like he was there, and we traded Bo, but like he never came off of RA until like the end of the season. It was like, look at this thing we once had. There it is.
So Martin Jones had potential. I mean, the team wasn't exactly like helping him out some nights, but so he wasn't really like the franchise goalie that we were hoping for. So before that, it was Evgeny Nabokov. And ever since then, I've been waiting for the Sharks. Like, I think whatever that draft year was when, who's the guy on the Wild, their goaltender?
Gustafson?
Wallstead.
Oh, Wallstead. Yeah.
Yes. So that was okay. I remember it now. The draft year that Eklund dropped, but like all the kind of talks between like the media and like the scouts around the Sharks were like they were kind of looking to draft Wallstead, but when Eklund dropped, they grabbed him instead. So I was kind of hoping that draft year, I'm like, we're gonna get our potential franchise goalie. I want a franchise goalie. So all that to say, Magnus has been kind of that for me ever since we acquired him. I'm like, okay, number one, great name. Number two, could this guy be the franchise goaltender that we're hoping for? And when he finally finished out his University of Denver college run and he came over to the Barracuda, I'm like, yes, it's beginning. But early in the season, we had brought him up a few times to play because our goaltender situation. And you know, in the beginning of the season, the Sharks were terrible as we do. And I just was like, God, can we just not? Can he just please stop scarring our poor little baby Sharks right now? Because he was part of one of the games that it was like 10 to whatever the hell. And I'm like, I hate this game. This is terrible. Like, I know the team's supposed to be bad, but this is torture to watch the baby shark just get lit up like crazy. And, you know, like, it's not on him.
Right.
And it's like, as much as I want him to eventually come up, and, you know, he obviously is going, maybe in the coming seasons, maybe next season he'll be the backup. I don't know. We'll see. But, like, in the beginning of the season, it was just like, cover your face. I don't want to look because this team is not going to help this guy out. And this is awful to watch. So they brought him up because Blackwood went down during the Devils game. I don't remember what they said about it. But they brought him up, and then on the broadcast, they're saying, oh, they're going on the road, they'll maybe start, maybe Magnus Corona will get the opportunity to play against the Stars. And my jaw dropped when they said that on the broadcast, and I was just like, why? Why would you do that to him? Like, I want to see him play, but like, why are you gonna make him go against the Stars? Come, like, this is torture. He was amazing against the Stars.
That was a good save. That save that you clipped, that was good. That was like stretch the body out, put the paddle down.
Braden Holtby, Stanley Cup. Yeah.
Yes.
Same sort of stave.
Dude, and I know I've said this before, but like the white jersey with the teal bucket looks good, and then like seeing that aesthetic make that paddle save at the goal line like that, I mean, that was clutch. Now, I don't want to ask what the end result of that game was because I get nervous to ask about the Sharks.
It's okay. You could ask about, because I was actually really impressed with how we made the Stars fight for that second point. We went all the way into shootout.
Oh.
And I was actually kind of concerned, by the end of the first period, I was actually, I'm fine if the Sharks lose because, we have different plans this season. But like when he was doing so well, I think like in the first period, he must have seen like at least 20 shots to our like 7, I think it was at the end of the first. Like, so you knew he was going to see a lot of shots. After the first, I was like, he's doing a really good job. If the Sharks can kind of like keep at it, like, they were keeping up with the Stars. Like, I mean, how long that was going to keep up, who knew? But like, if they could at least keep up with them and at least try to get as many of these high danger shots away, they didn't really do it too well. But like, if they were gonna like stay in this game, I wanted this win, not only for the team but for Magnus, because of one of the last games he saw, it was 10 or whatever. Like, there were little things that he was doing in his game where you could tell that he had really like been working on it while he's down with the Barracuda and stuff like that. So I really wanted this win for him. And when they couldn't close it out in regulation, I was actually concerned to see like what would happen in OT. And I'm like, I don't really want to do this. And then they ended up getting into the shootout, and I'm like, oh, great. Now we have to see, like, Jake Ottinger versus, Magnus Corona. And I think they ended up going to, like, I want to say 7 or 9. I don't know why those numbers come up, like, rounds.
Holy.
And freaking Jamie Benn killed my poor goaltender. Freaking Jamie Benn. Ben. I mean, the Sharks couldn't really figure it out. So, but there was, for the most part, like, he was doing so well, and I really wanted this win for him. But even though he didn't get it, wow, he saved over, like, I think it was 36 saves or something like that. And he kept it to a 2-2 game until they got into the shootout. And if you look at, like, what the heat map for where all those shots were coming from, they were all just above like the crease, all in that area. So it was high danger shots, and Magnus stood tall, doing what he needed to do, making all these crazy saves up until the shootout, where at that point,
That's pretty badass, though. I mean, to come in, especially after you were, like you said, you were getting pretty much just ruthlessly beat up on, and then you come in and you're making beautiful paddle stops like that, like in the crease, and getting into a shootout. Because I know the Sharks have won games. I've been really rooting for you guys to, do something, kind of poking you with the stick a little bit. But I just feel like there's still so much flack that the Sharks get from everybody else this season, where it's like still nobody's like taking you guys seriously. So especially against teams that I don't like Dallas, like I'm rooting for you guys. I don't want to be like, I want the Sharks to screw up somebody's day. So the fact that like this Magnus, which is an epic name, like you said, like gets in there and takes the team to a shootout against the Stars, who have been pretty good this season. Pretty fairly an exciting team. I feel like that's a good. I should maybe grease some wheels there. Kind of like make Sharks fans a little bit excited because how how's Blackwood been? I always thought he had the capability of being a solid tender, but I know you guys have had peaks and valleys.
He's actually been the better goalie in my perspective between him and Kakkonen. I will say that Kakkonen has kind of improved his game since last season. From the time that we had him to the present, like I remember like some interview or something. Like I remember trying to find some more information about him, and he was pegged as a person who was a natural goaltender in the sense that it's just like instinctually, like it's something that comes naturally to him versus something that's taught. But in that sense, from that definition, that also kind of means that like systematically, he doesn't really play the way that goaltenders are taught.
Right.
And I feel like if you don't kind of have like a balance of that is kind of what he was struggling with, and he's been improving over the season. Our goalie coach is Evgeny Nabokov. And he was the type of player who, from the time that he came into the league to when he left, like there was a bit of that shift from how like a Martin Brodeur or like how Henrik Lundqvist used to play to like with like the double stack and like all this stuff to a butterfly style. He was part of that. So I feel like that has been really helpful for Kakkonen to be mentored by someone who understands needing to change, make tweaks to your game to evolve with the game.
Right.
So he's made a lot of great strides in that, but at the end of the day, Blackwood has done just a bit more every time he's been in net to keep the Sharks in games. And unfortunately, I feel like at the end of the day, especially with Blackwood being a Greer acquisition, I feel like Kakkonen is going to be on the move, and I feel like, if he gets an opportunity to play and like in like a starter role somewhere else, is probably going to be better for everybody in the long run, because I really do feel like with his contract expiring come off season and Blackwood has one more year left, like I think he's going to end up being the one that is not going to be around. Now, whether that is actually going to happen, we'll just have to wait and see. But for like the future of the Sharks, like Magnus is someone that I'm hoping will continue to improve and kind of like take the reins in like the next couple of seasons ahead.
Is Magnus, is he back down with the CUDA, or is he still up with San Jose?
No, he's on the road trip with them right now because Blackwood is on IR. But Blackwood is on the trip with them, so I think they're just kind of like, he might show up or he might not. But definitely when Blackwood is activated again, yeah, Magnus will go down, which I'm perfectly fine with. Like, if he does not become the backup next season, I'm perfectly fine with him just continuing to tweak and improve his game with the CUDA, because we're not going to be relevant for at least like the next 3 seasons, and I do not want these guys to come up just for the sake of, oh, I want to see them with the big club. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
want to see them for a couple of games, but I don't want them to like be unnecessarily staying up with the team and getting slaughtered, especially since I feel like this team is going to look just like it was last season, drastically different for the upcoming season. Like,
Yeah.
we are going to go through these growing pains because we are in a rebuild. And yeah.
Yeah, I feel like too, like a goalie, like I mean, it's important every position develops, but I just feel like you don't ever really want to rush the development of a goalie. You know, it's such a mental. It's the reason why I can't play. It's such a mentally engaged position, and just the amount of sheer attention and processing and calculating and reads. I'm sure that there's. I know I can't do it, and I'm sure the magic that happens behind it is quite a number. And I feel like if there's one position you really should like shelter in that development way of just making sure that they're, like you said, making those tweaks and like perfecting those tweaks and then seeing what else you have to go back and revise. I just feel like a goalie's development is so important to their longevity in the league. Just being able to do it all, because it is that's a I have so much respect for goaltenders. I know I've said it before on the pod. That's something I would never do, and I think that all goaltenders are precious people because they're crazy enough to do it. So I just feel like when it comes, like when we talk about letting them cook, I feel like that's the thing. We should just let them cook. So Magnus seems like he's I mean, with a showing like that and a shootout, he seems like he's figuring out the right measure of ingredients to start at, and he's getting his recipe perfected, it feels like.
So, as somebody who's played in net,
Yes.
I appreciate all the kind words, and I definitely had a period in time where I let it get to me. Like, the mental game of it is, from my perspective as a beer leader, it's still exponentially more difficult than a player. Like the way that I try to like describe it is like when I will always prefer skating out. I love the goalie position and everything about it, but if I had to choose the one thing that I would play for the rest of my life type of thing, I would always choose forward. But it's such a mind shift when you play goaltender versus forward and or defense. When you go out there and just skate, like you're making it up as you go. Like, yeah, there's a bit of a system, like when you get into the zone, like, there's a bit like of a, if you get to a certain point, you cycle it down, blah, blah, blah. Like there's little things that that you practice and like will be effective. But at the end of the day, you are making up your own story because everything is constantly changing like on the ice. But from a goalie's perspective, like I don't understand natural goaltenders like Kakkonen, who like had to kind of find that balance between just going with the flow versus playing the system within the crease, because there is a system about it. You have to be at a certain angle to like cover all the like the holes around you, like when you go down, when you hug the post. If you're just kind of like winging it, which is like the thing that I stayed away from when I decided, I'm gonna strap on the pads. Like I wanted to find the ideal situation for me to be able to learn and not just to get thrown in there with the wolves versus
Right.
when I first started playing as a forward. Yeah, put me in there with the wolves, we'll figure it out. It's fine because
Fine.
like yeah, but I'm always the first. I always feel like I am so quick to defend a goaltender in any conversation where somebody is like, oh, the goalie this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, actually, I just like it's just I don't know. I just get really defensive for some goaltenders because yeah, that wasn't their fault because they had like 5 other freaking skaters that could have did something and they didn't.
This is what I was taught. I play defense in soccer. I play right back, and what I was always taught from like my very first soccer coach, and this has been the thing that stayed with me, even when I watch hockey, is like if the ball got to your keeper, everybody else failed at what they were doing, what they're supposed to be doing. And I just like, there's like, listen, if like last night, the Icemen played the Orlando Bears, and they had like, the Solar Bears had like 5 goals and like 16 shots, where the Icemen like only scored their like 3 goals in the last 3 minutes of the game, but they had like 30 shots on net and didn't get anything until like the last 4 minutes. I was like telling my mom, I was like, that's a great display of, there was a good goaltender and there was a bad goaltender. Like, this one team tender was on, he had it, everybody else in front of him was dropping the ball, but it didn't matter because he was there. And then we had, not to knock Murdaka, but then we had Murdaka in net for the Icemen, and everybody else was operating on all cylinders, but Murdaka wasn't there. Like, it's just like a great example of like, well, when these guys are overworked, you can't, like, putting it all on your goalie is kind of like leaving them out to dry. Like, I always remember that thing, like my soccer coach told me, if it's getting to the keeper, somebody has dropped the ball. Like, in that process of doing what their position requires them to do. So I don't blame goalies too much. Even when Demko gets a bad bounce, I'm like, oh, I'm like, that's not your fault, Dimmer. Like,
it's like, how many shots has he seen so far? Yeah, seems valid that he'd be a little off right now. Like, yeah, like everyone loves like that flashy save or something like that, and I always kind of like I love them too. But if you have your goalie like going left, right, and then has to dive to make another save, it's like, yeah, you better be buying them lunch, because like how active my brain is as a skater versus a goaltender. Like, there's so much happening when I'm a skater. Like, where do I go? How do I defend this position? And like, you're constantly like thinking of like where to go. As a goaltender, nothing's happened up here. Like, I'm not thinking about fuck all. I'm just like, it's just a fucking robot. And like I get it. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's kind of boring, like blah blah blah. It's like, no, I love boring. As a goaltender. I don't want any lick of excitement. Keep it down to a minimum. But like in the post game interview, like Magnus, like, I'm just so happy that he had so much fun. He was talking about like, even when it went down into the shootout, and he was like, oh, I was loving it. And I was like, see, and he's at another level of crazy, because I had, so shootouts like rarely happen during beer league, but I ended up playing for, like a team that ended up going to shootout, and I was just like, wait, what's happening? I've only been in one shootout. I didn't let any in, and I'd like to keep it that way. I was just like deer in headlights, screaming, "Oh my god!" Yeah,
nah.
but he was loving it. He was just like, "Yeah, bring it on." I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I'm cool if they like win this in regulation."
Right.
I don't. No, thank you. I'm okay.
That's wild. Goaltenders are different people.
Mm-hmm.
Just different types of
people.
But
that's cool that he was really excited. That means, I have a lot of high hopes for this player. And I was thinking the other day, so I got the Cali Finn jersey, but given that I have no idea who's staying on this team, I didn't get it customized. I do have hopes of customizing it at some point. At some point being maybe like 3 seasons from now.
if you still have Ferraro in like 3 years, do you get a Ferraro?
Oh, I already have Ferraro.
Oh, well, yeah.
I got the teal, the home jersey, and I have Ferraro on it. So, but yeah, so it's at this current time, it is between William Eklund, Magnus Krona, and Fabian Zetterlund.
One of those is Slippery Pete, right?
The first one, yeah.
Eklund, yes,
William
okay,
Eklund.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of those guys is in the running. We'll see what happens in the coming seasons.
I know. Listen, I know jersey fouls are one thing, but like, could you, if you got Eklund, could you just like instead of his name, just put slippery on the nameplate? I feel like, I mean, I know jersey fouls are a fashion crime, but sometimes I feel like it's okay to have fun with it a little bit. And that one, I would vote for that.
I won't be doing that, but I'm okay with people who do that. Like for a while, like after that like Joe Thornton trade from the Bruins to the Sharks, there were a lot of fans who had Joe Thornton jerseys that said thanks Boston or something like that in reference to it.
I've seen some
But I did see a Kraken fan had a Joey Decord jersey, and I guess in French his name translates to like okay or something.
Yeah, I seen that.
They put okay on the
I love that. I like a good jersey fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but yeah, that's our future of the Sharks right there. I know other people are excited for the other goaltenders. Like, okay, that's fine, but I'm taking Magnus all the way.
And that was a badass save that Magnus pulled off. I mean, like, I don't like to say anything bad about you guys. Just stay positive, Sharks fans.
I'm perfectly fine right now. I had a little bit of that feeling of what it feels like when the Sharks are good and like in the playoffs and stuff like that during this Stars game, because I really wanted the win for them. And you know, when they ended up losing, I was like, okay, back to the back to the point of this back to the point of the season. But like, yeah, like this season has been, it's been chill. I've been fine.
It's been fine.
Yeah.
It's going. I mean, like you said it pretty like readily from the beginning of the season. Like this was kind of like this is how things were expected to be in some way. So I think fans get so impatient when it comes to rebuilding and retooling, but like growing pains. I mean, the Canucks haven't been this good this recently for this long, right? Like this is still brand new to us too, to the point where we're like, okay, like when does when does it stop getting to be this good? Like growing pains happen. We have to. It is a business, and that is like one of the most important things I think anybody can remember. What's up? We all like to win, but sometimes you just gotta buckle up. You know, buckle up, Buttercup, and get through it because it's you can't change it. You can't really do anything about it except for embrace it. So, Godspeed to you, Sharks.
I mean,
fans.
the Sharks were good for quite a while.
Yeah,
and we were so close to the prize, and now we need to tear it all down
and do it better.
And I'm excited for it. We've got, I mean, Eklund has improved exponentially from the first season that he got a little taste of the NHL, and then we decided, you know what, we're going to send you back to Sweden. We're going to let you cook over there, and he was upset about it. But he did what he needed to do, and then he made the team. Last season he came over, he spent a season with the CUDA, and then he made the team this season. And with our Hurdle out and with Couture out, like he's been one of the leaders out there. So, you know, that's nice exciting stuff for the future. Yeah,
for sure. And it's nice to have those new guys, those new fresh faces jump in and kind of assume those leadership roles, especially in a rebuild. It's all uphill from here, or it's all up from
uphill here. with a little bit of slopes along the way,
and sometimes maybe like 5 boulders, but you'll be fine.
But you know what? Hopefully next week we'll get to talk about some trades.
Yes,
I know there will be all kinds of trades probably happening on Friday, but in particular, I would like to be able to talk about some trades with our respective teams because I am waiting for them.
I know the
Do
Canucks are going to make a
something.
move. There's got to be another move up Alvin's sleeve here. I'm nervous, but like at the same time, I'm like, we've been letting this front office cook, and the Canucks are good this season. So just keep chefing it up, Rutherford and Alvin. I'll be here eating happily, just seconds on my plate. So it's about time for the Sharks to maybe have some plates to themselves.
Hoping for it.
I hope that was a good metaphor.
Yeah, it works.
It works.
It works.
I could have went with a car. You can always do a car analogy. Well, Jay, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to our colorful commentary today?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, me too. I don't have a lot. The only thing I was really excited about was the Pettersson trade, mainly so I don't have to be, nervous that he's not with us anymore. So
He's not with us anymore. Oh, so sad.
the weight is off my shoulders until next weekend, when probably the world of calamity will be struck again. But everybody out there, stay sane through the trade deadline, you guys, because it should be fun. And well, I've been Drew, your host.
And I'm your co-host, Jay.
All right. Take care, guys, and yeah, be ready for a crazy trade deadline frenzy. Bye.
It's gonna be exciting. Bye.